Look down at your hand. It seems solid, a single unified thing. But it is a lie, a beautiful illusion woven from trillions of individual lives. Each of these lives is a cell, a microscopic bag of bustling activity. A self-contained world that is the fundamental unit of your existence. All life, from the smallest bacterium floating in a hot spring to the great blue whale gliding through the ocean. They can exist alone, as single-celled organisms, or cooperate in vast, intricate communities to build a body. Inside every one of these cells, a constant, coordinated dance of work is happening. Countless specialized parts, known as organelles, perform specific jobs. This essay will be your guide on a journey into that hidden world. First, the tools that first allowed us to peer into this realm. Then, the two fundamental types of cells that define life on Earth. After that, an intimate tour of the complex machinery inside a eukaryotic cell. Finally, compare plant and animal cells, then view the cell as a whole. This journey is not just about memorizing parts, it's about understanding the logic of life. Structure dictates function, and function determines the organism. For most of human history, the cell was a complete mystery. Life was what you could see: plants, animals, fungi. The world beneath that threshold was invisible. The invention of the microscope in the 17th century changed everything. It was a new window into a tiny, unseen world. The first of these, the light microscope, was relatively simple. It passed visible light through a specimen, then through curved glass lenses that bend the light and magnify the image. Suddenly, a drop of pond water was a teeming universe. Plant tissues resolved into neat stacked boxes. Robert Hooke called these boxes cells. The light microscope let us see basic cell shapes and big internal parts. Even today, it remains indispensable. Its great advantage? It can view living cells. Scientists can watch cells move, divide, and respond to their environment in real time. Using stains and fluorescent dyes, researchers make parts light up. Fluorescence microscopy transformed our view of cell processes. We can track a single protein or watch the cell's internal skeleton rearrange. The light microscope gives a vibrant, living picture, but light has limits. Physics sets a resolution limit at about half the wavelength of light. Even the best light microscopes can't resolve below about 200 nanometers. So organelles stayed fuzzy for a long time. In the 1930s, the electron microscope arrived. It fires a beam of electrons through a specimen. It uses electromagnets instead of glass lenses to focus electrons. The electron microscope shattered the resolution barrier. Fuzzy blobs became complex organelles: membranes, folds, pores. Two main types. TEM reveals internal structure in thin slices. SEM produces stunning 3D surface images. The trade-off: EM sample prep kills cells. EM gives an anatomical snapshot, not life in motion. Together, one shows the living dance, the other the exquisite architecture. They give a complete picture of the cell. One of the first things you notice about cells is their size. They are, with very few exceptions, incredibly small. To put it in perspective, a typical human red blood cell measures about 7 micrometers in diameter. A micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. Hundreds of them could line up across the head of a pin. Many bacteria are even smaller, often just 1 to 5 micrometers long. A cell's small size is a direct consequence of the physical laws of geometry and diffusion. As a cell gets bigger, its internal volume grows much faster than its outer surface area. A very large cell would have huge demands but too little surface to exchange. Eventually, traffic would grind to a halt. It would starve in its own waste. This is the tyranny of scale. A small cell, by contrast, has a high surface area to volume ratio. Diffusion is sufficient across short distances within a small cell. This is why large organisms are built of trillions of tiny ones. As we survey the vast diversity of cellular life on our planet, we find that it all falls into two fundamental categories, two distinct architectural plans. This is the most profound division in all of biology. On one side are the prokaryotic cells, and on the other are the eukaryotic cells. Pro means before. Karyon means kernel or nucleus. Eu means true. So, prokaryotes are the cells before a nucleus, and eukaryotes are the cells with a true nucleus. This single feature, the presence or absence of a nucleus, is the most conspicuous difference, but it represents a much deeper divergence. Prokaryotic cells are the masters of simplicity and efficiency. This group includes the vast domain bacteria and archaea. Their genetic material, a single circular chromosome of DNA, is not enclosed within a membrane-bound nucleus. Instead, it floats in a region called the nucleoid. The interior is relatively simple, lacking the complex collection of organelles found in eukaryotes. They do have ribosomes. A tough cell wall protects the cell. Some have flagella. They can divide very quickly. This is the oldest and most successful form of life on Earth. Eukaryotic cells, in contrast, are defined by their complexity and compartmentalization, including all plants, animals, fungi, and protists. The hallmark of the eukaryotic cell is its true nucleus, enclosed by a double membrane and housing multiple linear chromosomes. The cytoplasm is filled with specialized organelles, a cellular division of labor. Endosymbiosis paved the way for larger, more complex cells and multicellular life. Let us now step inside a typical eukaryotic cell, such as one from an animal. Imagine it as a bustling, microscopic city, a self-contained metropolis, where millions of chemical reactions happen every second. Each organelle is a distinct district or building with a specialized job. All of them work together in a coordinated fashion to keep the city running. Our tour begins at the very center, at the city hall, the nucleus. It is enclosed by a double membrane, the nuclear envelope, perforated by tiny pores. Inside are chromosomes, the genetic library. The nucleus also contains the nucleolus, the construction site for ribosomes. Scattered throughout the cytoplasm are countless ribosomes. Some float freely, others attach to the endoplasmic reticulum, giving rise to the rough ER. This is the main factory for proteins shipped out or embedded in membranes. The rough ER folds these newly made proteins into proper shapes. Connected to it is the smooth ER, which lacks ribosomes. It synthesizes lipids, detoxifies poisons, and stores calcium ions. From the ER, proteins and lipids are packed into transport vesicles, the city's delivery trucks. Nucleus, rough ER, transport vesicle. Golgi apparatus, secretion vesicle. The Golgi looks like a stack of flattened pancakes, cisternae. It functions as the city's main post office and finishing center. As cargo arrives from the ER, the Golgi modifies, sorts, and packages it, adding molecular zip codes or preparing vesicles for export. The power plants of the cell are the mitochondria, where cellular respiration makes vast quantities of ATP, the main energy currency of the cell. The lysosomes are recycling centers, breaking down waste and damaged organelles. The peroxisome handles specific toxic substances. Weaving throughout the cell is the cytoskeleton, a dynamic skeleton and highway. It provides support and tracks for organelle and vesicle movement. While animal and plant cells share the same fundamental eukaryotic blueprint, both have a nucleus, mitochondria, ER, and Golgi, their different lifestyles have led to several key structural differences. An animal is mobile. It moves to find food. A plant is stationary. It makes its own food. If you looked at a plant cell under a microscope, 3 features would stand out. Cell wall, made mainly of cellulose, acting like a rigid external skeleton that provides support and prevents bursting. The combined strength of billions of cell walls lets a redwood stand hundreds of feet tall. Animal cells need flexibility for movement and lack this rigid wall. Second, chloroplasts perform photosynthesis, converting light into chemical energy. They are the plant's solar power plants and contain chlorophyll. Using that energy, they combine carbon dioxide and water to produce sugars, making plants the producers at the base of most food chains. Finally, mature plant cells are dominated by a large central vacuole that maintains turgor pressure. When plants wilt, vacuoles lose water and pressure drops. Animal cells may have small temporary vacuoles, but lack the massive permanent central vacuole critical to plant life. Having toured the individual districts of the cellular city and examined their specific jobs, it is crucial to step back and appreciate the whole. A cell is far more than just a random bag of organelles. It is a highly integrated and dynamic system. Consider a secreted protein, like insulin, nucleus to ER, to Golgi, to membrane, all powered by mitochondria and moved by the cytoskeleton. Nucleus, ER, Golgi, vesicles, mitochondria, cytoskeleton. This organization lets a cell respond to its environment, to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain homeostasis. Organelle, specialized structures inside a eukaryotic cell. Each performs a specific job. Prokaryotic simple cells lack a true nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic, More complex cells with a true nucleus and organelles. Nucleus, the control center with DNA. Mitochondria are power plants for ATP. Golgi apparatus, post office. Cytoskeleton, support and transport tracks. The plasma membrane is not just a passive container, it is an active, vital gatekeeper mediating every interaction with the world beyond. With channels, pumps, and receptors, cells import nutrients, export waste, and communicate. Stay tuned, because coming up next, we are going to be exploring Chapter 7, Membrane Structure and Function.